Hey, all right. Thank you, Miranda. I'm very excited to be here with Every Dog Austin. I am actually in the Bronx, New York, the where many of us here consider the birthplace of hip hop. I'm really grateful to have this opportunity to share this with you. Okay, with you all, which I know like you're all around the world right now. I'm just going to dive right into this, okay? Just a quick introduction about myself. I consider myself like a wildlife biologist turned dog trainer, and I'm one of the lucky few people who had the opportunity to learn how to train animals at a zoo. So I learned how to train animals first before I was training dogs at the Central Park Zoo in the Bronx Zoo here. And then I went back to grad school, became a biologist, worked for New York City for a little while as an ecologist. I know that sounds like an oxymoron, but yes, we do have wildlife in New York City. And then I missed working with dogs so much that I went back to working with dogs. So currently, I have my own business, Sits and Wiggles Dog Training, but I also work several hours a week at the Humane Society of Westchester, and I am an instructor for the CATCH Canine Trainers Academy. Okay, and this webinar that I'm going to present today is really I find it's hopefully you're going to find it as exciting and fun as I do. Okay, it's been really a culmination of like really a lot of learning and a lot of work and experimenting, this is specifically with shelter dogs. Okay, you're going to get it's a combination of what I've learned through ethology as a biologist. Okay, but also working with some of my amazing colleagues. Some experts in neuroscience. I've learned a lot about neuroscience, learning about ABA and psychology, and also veterinary behavior. Okay, so you're getting like this is like a all-encompassing this kind of a holistic approach of looking at dogs and helping dogs, specifically helping them how to relax and settle, okay, so that they can learn. Okay, and I think one of the biggest mistakes that I see a lot of trainers make, or a lot of people make with their dogs, is that they're trying to train and teach the dogs things when the dogs are simply too stressed, too aroused, too stressed, and they're not really learning. And I think people learn how to train, usually like some of your basic manner skills, like sit down, stay, that type of stuff. Um, and they learn how to do that. But I think a lot of people never really learn how to help their dogs decompress. So when they're in a high arousal state, they're a high stress state, how to bring them back down to a physiological baseline so that they can actually focus and learn. Okay, so that's what this webinar is specifically about, to give you all some very hopefully simple tools that you can use, okay, with your dogs, with the dogs you're working with shelter dogs, and specifically, what I'm going to be showing you lots of videos of shelter dogs. And most of them are lightly edited just for yeah for time. So but they're going to show you some of that learning process that the shelter dogs are going through. And for anyone who's ever worked in a shelter, uh, this is these are tough population of dogs to work with. Okay, so you're good with shelter dogs. I feel pretty confident you can probably be pretty good at working with any dog out there. Okay, so let's go. So the topics we're going to be talking about specifically, really highlighting, is creating a sense of safety and security, and how to help dogs work on decompression, and which helps build resilience. Okay, so this is actually a picture of a foster dog, little foster beagle mix, out in the woods, sniffing, doing a nice little sniffari here. All right. So before we dive into dogs, okay, I think one of the problems with learning about dogs or trying to learn more about dogs is this. It's ironically, it's we think we know too much about dogs. We think we know everything there is about dogs. So, as Alexandra Horowitz said in her book Inside of a Dog, the best way to learn about a dog, I'm paraphrasing here, is to forget everything you know about dogs. Okay, and to help you understand this, I'm gonna talk about coyotes. Okay, so not a dog, but closely related to dog. Okay, and in fact, closely related enough that dogs and coyotes are able to freely interbreed and the offspring continue to reproduce. So that's how closely related they are. In fact, up here in New York City, okay, the coyotes that we have here, we actually have a pair of coyotes that live in Central Park. Imagine that, okay? If you've ever been to Central Park, you know how many people and how many dogs there are, and a pair of coyotes lives right in Central Park. And I gotta tell you, like, you know, around the New York City area, metropolitan area, coyotes are thriving here. Okay, so my when I've been studying coyotes, you know, that's another little side project I do. I study coyotes. I work with the Gotham Coyote Project here, and we study the urban coyotes around New York City. And it's actually helped me become a better trainer because I've learned some lessons by studying these coyotes and learning how do these animals survive, and not just survive but thrive in a city with over 8 million people. And you know, anyone who's ever been to New York City, you know how dense it is. Okay, uh, and you know, you would expect that there'd be conflicts, there'd be all sorts of problems with coyotes and people here, but it's actually very, very rare. Okay. And most of the time when we do have problems, it's usually like a human caused problem. Okay. Like they're feeding either inadvertently or intentionally feeding coyotes. So the coyotes kind of lose their fear of humans. So things like that. But for the most part, coyotes are doing a great job avoiding humans and stay out of trouble. Right. So to really understand like dogs and the animal and the individual that you're working with, we have to understand this is it's a German word, the Umwelt. Okay, it's a term I learned as a freshman at the University of Michigan when I first took a behavior ecology class. It's one of my all-time favorite classes. So what the Umwelt is the sensory environment, okay, of that animal. All right. So what that means is it's not just the environment, but it's how the animal senses the world. And you know, we all think about, okay, dogs have a very strong sense of smell, so that's what we think about. So I want you to look a little deeper, more into that. It's because it's not just about like their sense of smell. So, for example, all right, I'm really simplifying this. Okay. So you're going to see some videos. Like I said, you can see some videos later in my presentation, and they're going to come. It's not going to be like a smooth video because of the limits of, I think, of my bandwidth and like the high, I guess, resolution of the videos. The bandwidth isn't able to contain all that data. So it's going to be slightly choppy, and I apologize for that. But hopefully you'll be able to see exactly, you know, what you need to get out of it. Okay. So in other words, like, you know, if you're old enough and you went to like old movie theaters, you had a movie theater, like it was a moving picture. There were like little frames that pass through, and it moves so fast that it looks like a smooth movement. So there's a certain number of frames per second that goes through. And dogs can see with a higher with higher frames per second than humans. So when in those old movie theaters, or if you still have like an old TV, old analog TV, what we see as smooth movement, your dog may look at it and they can see little frames, little choppy movements. And then it's really wild to think about that, but it's simply because it actually takes time for the sensory information from your eyes to reach your brain and your brain to process that. It takes time to do that. And the dogs, because of the way the dogs' brains are, they're a little different than us. They can see things faster. Okay. Um, and that's important for dogs because guess what, well, maybe not dogs, but for more your wild canids, they are predators, right? They're predators, so it's really important for them to catch movements of perhaps their prey that's maybe in tall grass somewhere, right, like a coyote. Okay, so when you think about the umvelt, you also have to think about, okay, this is the animal's sensory perception, but you also have to think about like, wow, there's a lot of information out there. So a lot of information becomes kind of background noise, okay? But also information, we have to think about what aspects of the environment are actually meaningful for that animal, okay? And then not only that, is how is behavior, stress, and overall well-being impacted by the environment, okay, by what they're sensing in the environment. So it really, really matters to really pay attention to how those animals are actually perceiving that environment and through the lens of that animal's perception. Okay. And so you have to really use your imagination and get out of your own brain because it, we're only limited by our senses. Okay. Even doing a very simple thing is just getting down on the floor with your dog wherever they are and look at the world from their perspective. So sometimes just, bending down, getting down on the floor, the whole world looks different from that angle than when you're standing up. Okay. So just doing something as simple as that can give you a new perspective of how your dog may perceive the world. All right, so I'm going to show you some information, some data from our coyotes. This is a group of coyotes that lives in the South Bronx. Okay, and on the left of your screen, there is a map of the South Bronx. And what I've done is I've highlighted in red. This is actually a golf course area, and then in green, I circled like these are actually parks. Okay, and all those little dots inside, the blue, the yellow, the red, those little red markings, these are actually GPS locations of coyotes. So we put GPS collars on these, on a pack of on not a whole entire pack, but on several individuals. So 3 different individuals in the South Bronx. So we can track their movements with GPS. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the movements first. So what you might see is because of all these little circles, it actually kind of covers up where the golf course is. If you didn't have these circles, you kind of see this green area. Outside the green area, you see like it's more of this gray, and you can tell like, that's a city. This actually in the South Bronx, it's residential. And then there's some areas which are more like industrial, like some of these bigger buildings here. And you may notice like the majority of these GPS locations of the coyotes, they're located in the golf course and in parks. Okay, so right away, all right, we know that the coyotes are living inside these parks. Okay, they live inside these greener areas and they're staying out of the urban areas. Okay, the built up urban areas, but they do travel around. So uh what you might find that's interesting here is you see like where these little blue dot locations are, where my arrow is pointing. Okay, so they're walking along the shoreline here. Okay, and obviously like there's no bridge between. There's a little this is a little river, that's Bronx River, and then it comes out. So either the coyotes aren't gonna most of them aren't going to choose to just swim across. They're going to go around, cross the bridge, and come back around. But here's where it gets a little more interesting. Okay, so like let's say you're a coyote in this park here. You're the blue individual. Okay, or the yellow individual. All right, and you want to get to this park all the way on the left. All right, and so the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. Okay, so why don't the coyotes go straight across here? They are not doing that. What they're doing is they're walking along the shoreline, and this is very thick, very brushy, viney areas, and also like mud flats, tidal wetlands. So it's not pleasant to walk through. Okay, they're not walking a straight line down the street. it's sort of like if you were going to your neighbor's house, it's like 5 blocks down, just straight down the street. Instead of just going down the street, you walk around the perimeter of your entire neighborhood to get to your neighbor's house. So that's the coyotes are doing something very, very energetically costly. Okay. They're not just straight across, they're going through some viney, brushy, thorny, really unpleasant areas. And I know I've been in there because I was an ecologist. So I've been in these areas. And I know it's not pleasant to walk through. And so it's like, wow, why are they doing that? Why are they wasting so much energy doing that? Okay. And really, the answer is this is they're avoiding humans. They're avoiding encountering humans. Okay. So they're avoiding humans in space here. Okay. So this is what that shows. They're avoiding humans in space. Now, this graph on the right, this was actually, this data was actually collected by, I was working with some local high school students. It's a really cool project that they worked with local high school students and they matched them with like scientists like me to work on real science projects. And they took they took camera trapping data. So we put camera traps out in the parks. And we were able to track like, okay, when do we see the coyotes most active? Okay. Now, what I want you to pay attention to is really this dark, thick purple line. So that's a coyote. Okay. I had to color it with purple. I know down here the key is blue, but just to make it stand out for you more on this presentation, I made it a thick purple line. The other lines are the orange here is deer. Okay, so on the bottom on the x-axis here is the hour of the day. When are they most active and the percentage of the percentage that they were caught? Okay, so what you see here is the coyotes were most active at nighttime. So 0 hours is midnight to about 5 a.m. is when it starts to drop, and at about 6 a.m. you virtually see almost nothing. Okay, so you have very few coyotes, and then you see them being more active again starting at about 7 p.m., 8 p.m. when it gets dark, and you see their activity level go up. So for comparison, here are deer. Okay, the deer are most active. It peaks over at 6 and 7 a.m. as well as about 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. So deer are crepuscular, so meaning they're most active at dawn and dusk. Okay, and then what we see here are coyotes are nocturnal. But that's what's interesting is that in natural areas and more rural areas, coyotes are actually crepuscular. Okay, and what we find in urban places like Austin, okay, urban cities all around North America, coyotes switch their activity pattern to become from crepuscular, most active at dawn, dusk, and they become more active at night. They become nocturnal. And so coyotes are very simply, they're avoiding humans in time and space. Okay, so I'm thinking about this. I'm looking at this data. I'm thinking about it, and it's like, okay, this is kind of interesting. They are changing their natural behavior, adapting their behavior depending on what kind of environment they live in. Okay, and I started thinking about, okay, I'm working with dogs. And because of the work I do, I work with mostly behavior cases related to fear, anxiety, and aggression. And I think anybody who works with aggressive, I shouldn't call them aggressive dogs, but work with dogs that are exhibiting aggressive behavior, we understand that, most of it, by far the majority of the time, aggression is based out of fear. So it came down to this simple question I started asking myself is, how do we create a sense of safety for our dogs? Because if an animal like a coyote can somehow thrive here in one of the most dense cities in the world, right? How are they doing that? How are they thriving, reproducing like that? And then, how do I translate this to working with the dogs I work with? All right. So that's just it's a simple question, but it's not always a simple answer, right? And creating a sense of safety and security is a huge part of resilience. Okay. So when I talk about resilience, I'm talking about the ability to cope with stress and recover from the negative effects of stress, right? So we're looking at, okay, how intense is that response to stress, and how fast is that recovery from stress, right? And building resilience, a big part of building resilience, as we learned from first, like where I learned from the great Dr. Patricia McConnell, is one of key ingredients of building resilience is creating a sense of safety and security. Okay, so that's why, this is what we're going to dive into a little bit right now. All right, so this is what I do when I'm building a behavior modification plan. Okay, four elements that I'm always adding to that BMOD plan. Okay, is how do we create safety and security? How do we build confidence in the dog? How do we work on emotional regulation or arousal management? Okay, and then also, how do we give these animals more agency? Okay, and I love. There's a saying here, like that life is a series of adventures launched from a safe place. Okay, so you can kind of think about that whatever happens to you, wherever you take your dog, okay, that you launch those adventures from a safe place, and you always return back to that safe place, and that feeling of safety and security. And that's the thing that really helps them build that resilience to whatever you are exposing them to. Okay, because you're giving their bodies time to decompress. So here, I talked about how coyotes were avoiding humans in time and space. So I'm going to give you a quick like example here. So let's say we have a dog here on the left side of your screen. Looks like a fearful dog there. Okay, with those dilated pupils. Okay, let's say this dog has stranger danger, but this pup here is living in Manhattan, living in the middle of New York City. And it's going to be hard for this dog to survive in a very dense populated city. So what's something that we can do? Okay, so looking at it from a landscape level, right? We're going to say, I'm going to help my client, like, hey, let's create a niche that feels safe for your dog. Okay, so you're going to have to change the way you maybe manage your dog, because maybe your dog has a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear around unfamiliar people, around strangers. So let's just say with this dog maybe was in a hoarding situation, or came from a puppy mill or something like that. So they're very well socialized around dogs, but they're not great with people. Okay, so this dog lives a few blocks from Central Park. So we are going to make sure we meet this dog's needs for socialization and exercise. We are going to bring the dog to Central Park only during the early morning hours and after hours in Central Park, where uh, it's never not busy in Central Park, but at least it's relatively less busy during those times. So we're only going to go there and let the dog go out and sniff and explore and play with other dogs. So we're going to make a quick beeline if you have to. Okay. And then during the rest of the day, maybe you only go out for a quick relief walk, like a quick little pit stop. Okay. And perhaps maybe there's a doggy daycare, and I'm going to say this, I'm not a biggest fan of doggy daycares. Okay. Because I think a lot of them aren't really, they emphasize, they prioritize profit over dog safety and well-being. But, let's just say in this case that this is a well-run daycare. The dog feels comfortable there. The dog has been going there for a long time, and they're comfortable with the other dogs there. So maybe a few times during that week, to make sure we are meeting this dog's exercise needs, that we bring the dog to doggy daycare during the workday. Okay, so by doing this, we are helping. You can't avoid everything, all those stressors, but at the very least, you're making things a little bit easier. You're helping your person, your client, or yourself, find a safe niche for that dog where that dog can do well. Okay, and then as well as all that, in your home, in the dog's home, I think it's also important to create a safe zone in that dog's home, some place where the dog feels safe. Like, and usually, we talk about like using a crate. That crate is a dog safe zone. Nobody should bother their dog in there. Okay, so making sure that you have some sort of area inside the home as well, where the dog feels like, okay, I'm safe here. This is my own little space. People don't bother me here, right? Okay, so It's about creating a sense of safety. Okay. So here's an exercise. This is called the relaxation exercise. This is kind of a version of Nan Arthur's relaxation exercise. But I'm doing this with shelter dogs. So, please, I want to remind you, like, these are dogs that are usually, on average, about like they're spending about 23 hours in the kennel. So it's definitely hard. And I'm working with here. You're going to see a young dog. And what I do with a lot of these dogs, okay, is put a mat down, and then we just basically do a little down. It's not a down stay, but more like a down settle. Okay, like I'm gonna give you a steady stream of treats right in between the paws on the floor. Okay, so you know exactly where the treat's gonna arrive. Okay, and it's just going to keep coming at it. In the beginning, especially with these shelter dogs, I have to do it pretty quickly. Okay, um, on the bottom right, you can see a little timer. Okay, so this is actually real time of when I started this little exercise here. And right there, I'm trying to get the dog to roll his hips so he's more settled. Okay. But you can see, like, I'm fighting his arousal. Okay. Maybe not fighting is not the right word, but it's a challenge. Okay. Look at his tail. His tail is up. It's not even resting on the floor. It's kind of like hovering up on the floor and it's wagging a bit. Okay. So the dog is enjoying like getting treats. Okay. So here's minute one. Okay. Or this is minute two. All right. Now you're seeing a little bit more of a change. You see the dog is a little bit more settled, okay? More of that dog's body is in contact with the floor. The tail is, you can't really see it, but it's sort of resting a little bit more now, okay? The dog isn't as fidgety as it was in the beginning, okay? There you go. And look at that. That tail is resting on the ground right now, or maybe it's bouncing now, okay? So 2 minutes, 3 minutes in, look at that. Now it's even resting even more. You can if you look closely, you can almost tell like the muscle tension is a little softer. Okay, so if you were bored watching this, it's good because that's the point. Okay, the point is do this little simple exercise of lying down on a mat, and we're going to be here for a while. We're going to do this for a few minutes, and we're not going to do anything else for a little while. So sometimes what happens is the dogs when you do this repetitively, the dogs start to realize like, oh, okay, so since we're not going anywhere for a while, I might as well just kind of, get myself more settled here. And this is a 1 or even less than 1 year old Diesel here. Okay, so you're working with adolescent dogs, you know how hard it is to help them relax, right? So now that you practice this in a nice, quiet environment, so it helps them learn how to relax, now you try to generalize this into other areas, into other environments and situations. So you take this simple exercise of relaxing on the mat, okay, and then you do it outside, or you do it in another room, you do it around other people. And here is an example of me working with a shelter dog named Chewy. We're working on a relaxation out in the little tiny park between two streets. And I'm not showing you a perfectly clean example here, like I want to show you like, hey, it's a little messy sometimes, okay? Like I said, this isn't a downstay. Look at Chewy, like, hey, I'm gonna roll my back and chew on the leash, okay? His name is very apt, Chewy. But we just work through it. We keep working on like relaxation, okay? Again, it's not a downstay. So if you need to get up and stretch his legs a little bit, I allow that. Okay. I even pick up a stick here, see if he wants to like play a little bit. All right. See if maybe he'll get occupied with chewing on the stick or something like that. Um, so, so we kind of keep working at it. Okay. Doing some petting. See if, do you want to do some petting instead? All right. But now, okay. Now he's ready. Lay back down. And then let's start with the treats again. We're going to put some more treats down on the ground. Okay. We're going to keep working at this. Right. So the idea behind doing this exercise, like sometimes we call it world watching. Okay. It's learning to just chill out and watch the world go by without acting on it. Right. So you want to try to do this first in, you're not going to bring this dog in the middle of Times Square, right? You're going to take this dog like, okay, in a relatively quiet park, first like from starting indoors to doing like a relatively quiet park, And then you kind of over time, you kind of build up the distractions and the challenges. Okay. He even put his head down there. Isn't that sweet? Right. But yeah, you still see a little bit of like activity, some panting here. Okay. So we're relaxing a little bit more. Yeah, there we go. Good job, Chewy. One of my all-time favorite dogs to work with. He was so much fun to work with. He actually learned how to do cooperative care faster than any dog I ever worked with. It was really incredible to watch. Okay, so I'm gonna just kind of jump forward a little bit. Okay, here we are. Now we're working on relaxation at outside of a Starbucks. All right, we have more of an urban environment now. People are passing by, and he's just sitting out there watching traffic go by, watching people walk by, and it's the same little exercise of hey, relax. Okay, relaxation. Right. Okay, so seeing enough of that, we're going to jump to the next slide. Okay, so arousal management or emotional regulation. Okay, and I like to call this the relaxation sandwich. So what you do is you start off with relaxation. Okay, another little shelter pit bull. Okay, we're working on relaxation first. Okay, then you also see I have a snuffle mat here. And then on the left, I have another little mat there, and that's actually where we start to play. So on the right, this is the relaxation mat. In the middle here, we have a snuffle mat. And then on the left, we have a play mat, okay? So in the beginning, when I train these shelter dogs, okay, I will cycle through each of these. Like here, we're doing relaxation on a relaxation mat. On the snuffle mat, if she makes contact with the snuffle mat, or if I feel like I need to get her to just kind of slow down for a little bit, I'll do a treat scatter in the snuffle mat. Okay. So whenever she chooses to make contact with the snuffle mat, I'll toss some treats in there. And then on the mat on the left, that's a play mat. Okay. And that's where we start play. I'll put a toy there. And whenever we start play, we're going to start play there consistently. All right. And the cool thing about this is where when I start doing this repetitively and the dogs start to realize, oh, okay, each station has a different purpose. And then I give them a choice. And then I'm going to ask them, hey, do you want to play? Do you want to snuffle mat? Or do you want to go over and relax? Okay. And when the dogs start to make that choice, then I just go with them. So that's giving them a little bit agency here. And you see this dog is named Susu. She took her toy and instead of like, hey, let's keep playing on the play mat, she chose to go over to relaxation mat. And she likes to just go over to that mat and like have her toy with her. Okay. So we work on relaxation, then we work on activation, getting her more aroused. Okay. And then we bring her back to relaxation. And the important thing to understand about this, that saying practice makes perfect, right? We pretty much heard that before. And so there's another saying in neuroscience where nerves that fire together wire together. Okay. So in other words, when you practice a skill more, your brain, your nervous system fires. Those nerves fire, right? And when they fire, they're going to connect more because the brain's like nervous system's like, hey, you're using this more. You're going to do this more. Okay. Oh, let me just go back really quickly there, okay? So we're working on a little impulse control here, okay? Little stay behavior. Good eye contact, then you get the toy. So we're building in like a little training while we play, okay? And then here, you're gonna see me ask Susu, hey, you sure you wanna relax? Okay, you're gonna see me like point to this mat, and she's like, nah, I wanna be there. Okay, so I listen to her and go back and then we hang out there. Okay. But the idea when I was talking about nerves that fire together, wired together, is the more you practice relaxation after your dog is excited or aroused or stressed, that pathway to relaxation will get stronger. Okay. Just like we talked about, practice makes perfect. So, a little tip is when the dog gets excited, even through play, okay, uh, work on some sort of decompression activity, like just doing, hey, maybe you can do a relaxation activity, okay? Another thing you can do is, here we go, is a safari, okay? So I think it's becoming more well known now. okay, that sniffing is good for dogs. That sniffing can actually lower the heart rate. It can help decrease stress. It's also very enriching and energy intensive. And a fascinating experiment by Alexandra Horowitz, and I forget the other researcher, his name, I apologize right now, but they found in this interesting experiment that sniffing may promote optimism, right? So that's pretty cool to kind of think about. So and part of my behavior plans for, especially with shelter dogs, is take them out in safaris, take them out on also called a decompression walk, where ideally, if you have the space to do it, put them on the long line, okay? Or if you're in a place where you trust it, that's completely fenced in, or you trust your dog to be off leash, then let them go out and sniff. Let them explore and be a dog for a little while. Let them do what the doggy wants to do, right? So making sure that they have these opportunities. Okay. So I will work on, for example, like relaxation sandwich, okay, or like working on some sort of decompression activity. I'm going to show you a couple more in the next few slides. Like in the moment, the dog gets excited, okay, and I'm going to work on decompression right away. Or I'm walking along the streets, and let's say a garbage truck makes a loud noise and startles the dog, and dog's stress spikes up. Then I'm going to work on some sort of decompression activity. Okay, so a very simple one is like, I'm just going to grab a handful of treats and do a treat scatter. Okay, get the dog to sniff and forage a little bit, okay, to help lower their heart rate in that moment. But also, okay, not just in like that moment, the immediate moment after a stressful incident, but also over the long term. So one of the recommendations I give to all my clients is at the very least, once a week. And I work with a lot of clients like over here in the New York City metropolitan area, that take your dog someplace where they can go on a sniffari, where they can go out in nature and just sniff, not worry about other dogs, not worry about traffic and loud noises. Okay. Let them just go out and sniff. And your only job is to keep them out of trouble, keep them safe. All right. So you, for the most part, let them choose where they want to go, let them sniff as long as they want to sniff. And your only job is just like, okay, if you're walking out somewhere dangerous or you're going to pick up something that's dangerous, like that will stop them then. Okay. But that's so important to, especially dogs that are experiencing chronic stress, where they can't get away from it. It's really important that you take them out of that environment somehow. Okay. And let them relax somewhere. In areas where, like, let's say you have a dog that's not safe with other dogs, not safe with other people, okay? So it's hard to find like a park where you can bring your dog and let them go on a long line or even off leash. If you're in one of these areas, okay, then think about, look at Sniff Spot. So Sniff Spot, if you're not aware of it, is sort of like it's an Airbnb of private backyards, private property, where you can rent at very reasonable rates. Okay, someone's private property. Not all of them are fenced in, so you should check, but many of them are enclosed and fenced in, so that you can bring your dog there and let them sniff. In fact, it was really created for this purpose to, dogs that aren't safe at the dog park, dogs that aren't safe around a lot of people. Okay, it's to let them have a private space where they can just run around and be themselves for a little while. Right, that's so important for them. Okay, so I'm going to show you more exercises that can help with decompression. All right. Okay, so this is gonna, let me show you a few of Leslie McDevitt's pattern games. Okay, I have to make sure I give her credit. Okay, now the way I do these may not be exactly the way she teaches it. Okay, so I really want to make sure you all understand that. But I've had a lot of success using some of these pattern games that were inspired by Leslie McDevitt. Okay, pattern games work great because it creates a strong reinforcement history for a certain behavior. Okay, it creates predictability because patterns are predictable patterns that are consistent, and you repeat them. Okay, so especially when you have like stressed and anxious dogs, okay, anxiety needs information, and making things more predictable can help relieve anxiety. Right. And the pattern games have the ability to help change the emotional state a little faster than if you didn't use some of these. Okay. So a way to think about this is like, think about how your brain our brains are primed to kind of look for repeatable patterns. Okay. So think about a catchy jingle. Or a pop song that can, even if you don't like the jingle or the song, it can go on repeat in your head over and over, and you can't help it, right? Um, Great example is the Baby Shark song for children, right? So I think sometimes what I'm not sure exactly what's going on in the dog's brain, obviously, right? But I think it may be similar like that a pattern game that has a strong history with rewards and something positive has a positive association. When you do that, it kind of makes the negative emotions start to fade away into the background, and the positive emotions come to the forefront. Okay, so that's how pattern games can help. Okay, and because the pattern games are so predictable and they're essentially very simple, very easy, it makes it easier for the dog to stay calm when they're exposed to a triggering situation. Right. So I'm going to show you some examples of how I use pattern games at the shelter. Okay. So here you're going to see a beagle, shelter beagle with zoomies. Okay. Now, when a dog is in this type of state, there's no training. I can't really train the dog in this state. The dog is a little too excited. Okay. And this is called latte. So it's known as look at that, then enrichment. All right. I'm not going to go into details of why it's called look at that, then enrichment. But sometimes I also call it an enrichment loop where you create several enrichment stations and then you just sprinkle some treats into the enrichment station. So I repeat this. The dog eats some treats, looks at me, then I repeat it. Go to the next station. Dog looks up, go to the next station. Okay. Dog looks up, go to the next station. Okay. And I just kind of repeat this over and over. Okay. And so this is what I do to prepare the dog for training. Okay. So now the dog can actually sit and focus on me. Okay. So this dog that was running around in circles before, like I wouldn't be able to hold this dog's attention until I actually did this little exercise first. Right. So I think this is where you use these pattern games at times where, wow, your brain is gone. Okay, I need to get your brain back without getting angry or getting frustrated at your dog. All right. Like and yelling at your dog or something like, look at me, that makes it even harder for the dogs to pay attention when they start to sense that you're angry at them or you're frustrated at them. Okay. So make it more of a fun game. Okay. So obviously this is set up in a shelter setting, but I'm gonna give you other examples where you can do this in like a real life environment. All right. Here's another game, very simple game. It's called the 1-2-3 game. And what you're going to see is these are actually CATCH Training Academy students, okay, at a workshop. This is day 2 of the workshop. So what we do at this workshop, it's in Madison, New Jersey. So if you're really interested in like elevating your game, your dog training game, this is one of the I only know of one other place where you can do this, where you can spend an entire week working with shelter dogs, hands-on work with shelter dogs. And you have instructors like myself and some of my brilliant colleagues like Bobby Bambry. And you spend a whole week learning about training, but you not just learning, but you are working hands-on. Okay, so it's an incredible program because it takes a huge amount of trust for a shelter. Okay, this is at the St. Hubert's Animal Welfare Center in Madison, New Jersey, to trust a group of unknown people they don't even know. They know me, right? But they have to trust me that I'm going to teach you how to handle their dogs. So anyway, the 1-2-3 game, okay, is you just say it loud. 1-2-3, and then you give a dog a treat, and then you repeat that, okay, and you repeat that over and over. All right. This is day 2. So these are new students. They've only worked with these dogs like seriously, like I say day 2, but in reality, they've been with these dogs for at the most maybe 40 minutes. Okay, and they're shelter dogs. Okay, so little bond with the humans, And they are doing 1, 2, 3 up and down these rooms. Okay, we have the gates to separate them, but I think just the fact that these shelter dogs are paying attention to their handlers with another dog in the room with people they barely know, I think this is incredible. So I have the volume down, okay, but what the trainers are saying: 1, 2, 3, and they put a treat on the ground. 1, 2, 3, and they put a treat on the ground. Okay. And you can tell, like, at that husky on the right, a little rowdy, a little distracted over there, especially around the toys over there. Okay. But it is such a simple little thing when you start to teach this to your dog and you use this in different environments. You can be like, oh my God, this is so simple. Where has this game been my entire life? All right. So hopefully some of you guys already know about some of those games. Okay. All right. Here's a really cool example. Another shelter dog. All these are going to be shelter dog examples. Okay. So this is where we use predictability, sense of safety and security, social support. Okay, for this shelter dog. Okay, this dog named Brody, and Brody is fearful of new environments. It's kind of like a fearful, anxious dog. Okay, and especially with new environments. So we went to like one of these big box pet stores. Okay, and it's his first visit to that store. And in Brody's behavior plan, what we worked on is we worked on the 1, 2, 3 game. We worked on the relaxation exercise that I showed you earlier, and we worked on creating a safe zone. Okay, a safe zone with Brody was okay when you're lying on the mat, nobody bothers you. We also created a safe zone in my car. Okay, in the back of my car, where since he was anxious, like in new environments, I use my car as his safe place when we go out on field trips. Okay, so we visit the big box pet store, and you're going to see here. Okay, so you're going to see he's kind of fearful. His tail is down, his ears are back. Okay, we're walking through here. I start the 1, 2, 3 game, which he knows. And when I start counting 1, 2, 3, his tail goes up and starts wagging. Okay, but you can tell he's still stressed. I'm putting treats on the ground and he's not eating them. He's too vigilant. He's too stressed. He's not responding well. Okay, he's sort of responding. So I see that he's not responding well. So we actually go over here, which this was actually their training corner where they hold training classes. It's a tiny little area. I don't know how they train dogs here, but they do. So we took a little break, and then I could see like he's doing some stress panting. I'm like, okay, you know what? Let's get out of this store. Okay, we were a couple of minutes in the store. Now we go back to my car, and you see in my car there's a little hammock there. We have a mat. We even have a snuffle mat. Okay, so we are literally, okay, I'm not even lying to you guys. Okay, I'm completely honest. We did about 2 minutes of let's relax in the back of the car, and then we went back to the store. Okay, so 2 minutes of being in the back seat of the car, relaxation exercise. Go back into the store. Now you're gonna see his tail is a little higher. Okay, we go back to this little training corner. We just kind of sit here for a second. We do a little pattern game involving a little hand targeting. Okay, so you're going to see in a second. Oh, no, sorry. Another video shows that. All right. Anyway, now I'm doing the 1, 2, 3 game down the aisles again. And his tail is higher, and he's actually responding. He's actually eating the treats now. Okay, so he's eating the treats. There we go. All right. He's exploring the aisles a little bit more, some more exploratory behavior. He actually goes to greet one of the store employees, just really briefly, and he moves on. Okay, so he's still trying to figure things out here. Okay, so yeah, he's exploring, some Yankees, Knicks, Mets stuff here, some doggy toys. Okay, so you can tell he's a little bit like unsure about all this. Okay, but his response was so much better after we went out, took a break in the safety of my car, and then we went back in. And then we tried to end the trip on a positive note. So while there were some moments of stress, okay, oh, here's a little pattern game. Yeah. Okay. So I toss a treat, he comes over, does a hand target, toss a treat to the side, and then I repeat that. Touch my hand, little pattern game there too. Okay. So overall, even though he was exposed to some stress, okay, it was overall positive experience for Brody. All right. So building resilience, another way to think about resilience is stress inoculation. So think about like a vaccine, okay? Like you're putting like a dead virus, all right? Some sort of like weakened weakened like parasite, whatever, into your body, and then you let your own body's immune response like fight it and combat it, right? So in the same way, to build resilience, you try to, you don't want to overwhelm the dog and flood the dog, right? But you, just like going to the gym, you start working out a little bit, you strain your muscles a little bit, okay? And then you give it time to recover. So you expose the dog to a little bit of stress, you give them some time to recover, okay? And then show them like, hey, everything's fine. I'm right with you. That's a social support, a steady presence for that dog, okay? Here's another legacy pattern game, Super Bowls. So simple here. We actually hear this is another catch workshop. Very fearful, anxious little shelter dog here. You can tell by his slow movements. So what we in the Super Bowls game, we just have paper towels on the ground, okay? And what the handler is doing is simply putting a treat into on top of those little paper towels, and that's all they were doing. Okay, eat the treat, look up. Okay, and you see how like this Bobby over on the side over, she's standing against the door, right? We're trying to like give this dog space, but we're also trying to teach. Okay, so it's a big deal for this little fearful, anxious dog to be out in the center of this room with a bunch of strangers. But she's coping a little bit by simply doing this simple little exercise. A treat's going to appear in these little paper towels. You can put bowls down. Okay. In fact, a bowl works great because most dogs understand what a bowl is. Okay. So you put like multiple bowls down. You can put paper plates. You put frisbees down. Anything you want. Towels. Okay. When you're in shelter, you just get resourceful. You just kind of use whatever. Okay. So here we're just using some paper towels, but doing this little pattern is a first step of like helping this dog. Okay, so I'm going to show you an example here with another dog from my shelter. So we're doing a little version of the Super Bowls game with some snuffle mats here. Okay, so this dog was surrendered because the person's guardian, after a breakup with their girlfriend, was moving, and he claimed he couldn't take the dog with him. So he surrendered the dog to the shelter. The dog was very anxious, and the dog wouldn't let anyone pet her. The dog wasn't really coming out of his shell much. So I'm taking this dog out, and we're doing this little Super Bowls game or adaptation Super Bowls. After a few repetitions, I start adding new behaviors in, like hand targeting, as you just saw. So a very simple little thing. You don't have to add this in, but I felt like at this stage, it was helpful for this dog here to at least learn something new, respond to something different. Okay. So being very consistent and making it simple. Okay. I'm going to keep going, right? This is you see the timer here. This is 2.5 minutes after I started the session. Now we go over here. I'm doing some more hand targeting. Ask the dog to sit. And I'm starting to see a little bit of a change in the dog. The dog's name is Addie. So this is going to be cool. You're about to see the first time this dog lets me pet her. And it was such a breakthrough. This is one of those moments where it just warmed my heart. And there it is. That's the first time she let me pet her. And just to make sure that was okay, I took my hands off, and then she moved into me. And when she moved into me, that was an indication, yeah, you can keep going. I actually enjoyed that. Okay. And not only that, this blew my mind too, is you're going to see her actually play for the first time that I've seen her. So take a little toy here, toss it, and she went off and actually chased the toy a little bit. So cool to see this. It helped her, that Super Bowls game helped her decompress enough that she put her guard down, and then she finally was like, hey, I feel safe here. And she let me touch her, she let me pet her, she even played. Okay. And one thing you learn when you're studying animals in the wild is animals don't play in the wild unless they feel safe. Okay. Because it makes them vulnerable to predators, and it's also energetically costly. Okay, you know, you're not going to get a dog to play unless they feel safe, right? Adaptation of the Super Bowls game in real life. It's hard to see, but they're actually like little bluestone like steps in the grass here. So I'm using just the environment of, okay, look up, put a treat down. Look up, put a treat down. So you practice this, okay, in a non-triggering environment. So the dog gets a positive association with it, okay? And that's a key. Don't just do this during stressful events. You're going to use it during stressful events or right after a stressful event, but don't just do it during a stressful event. You have to practice it when it's not stressful for the animal, so they create a positive association with it. And again, I'm layering in a little bit of hand targeting with this dog. Okay, young shelter dog, that one of these type of dogs that really struggle to calm down and settle. Right. Okay, I know I'm getting close to 8 right now. I only have a few more videos to show you. Okay, so we're almost at the end here. Just hang with me and I'll give you guys an opportunity for questions. So this is another shelter dog who eventually became my dog. Okay, he was a foster fail. He's in the woods off leash. We're running around, and he just chased a squirrel up a tree. And this is just to show you an example of how I use decompression in a moment. After he chases the squirrel up a tree, we do a pattern game right here on these rocks. Okay, so he knows. So now I'm bringing his level down. He just had fun chasing a squirrel. Now I'm going to bring his arousal level down by doing this pattern. And not only that, but this conditions the dog to learn to look to you and seek you after they are in a high arousal state, or when they're in a high arousal state, or when they are stressed, right? And I know like people have a hard time getting the dog to focus on them and getting the dog to pay attention to them when they're too excited, too distracted, too stressed, right? So practicing this, even when your dog is just out there having a great time playing, okay, it helps condition your dog to look for you, search for you when they are feeling excited or stressed. And it's your job to be a very steady presence, to be there for them, to model the calm behavior that you want them to exhibit. So don't, you know, yell at your dogs. And no, we all get frustrated, especially when you're having a lot of behavior problems with the dog. But it's so important that you're not adding more, you're not putting gasoline on the fire, okay? You're not adding more stress in the situation when they're already highly stressed, that you're working on, hey, I'm going to help you calm down, because I'm the one who brings you to these places. So it's my responsibility. If I bring you to a place that you're not, you know, succeeding in, you're not successful in, then really that's my fault, right? So I'm going to keep them out of. I'm going to find the right niche where they can feel successful, where they can be great. But I also know, like, hey, you can't control the environment, and things are going to happen, right? So when things do happen, we are going to work on these decompression exercises so that they are able to stop and slow down, and then you can organically get them to focus back on you without scolding them or doing things more forceful that you probably won't like to do. A huge thing I talked about a little earlier, getting the dog to sniff. So I love adding scent work activities for shelter dogs and all dogs I work with. Okay, so this is Chewy. So Chewy was at that shelter long enough that we were able to do a whole lot with him. Okay, so here we're doing just hiding some treats in boxes for him to find. So a big part of, especially when you have these dogs that tend to be like working dog types that really need a job to do, doing a scent-based activity is great. So I always like to add that in to any dog you're working with. Here's Taz, my dog. Okay, he's almost 2 years old now. Okay, he spent his first 9 months of his life living in a shelter. From what I know, he was born in shelter, and he basically arrived at my shelter at 3 months old. I thought he'd get adopted right away because puppies usually get adopted quickly, but he didn't. And then at 9 months old, I started fostering him. And then eventually he became a foster tail because he's such an awesome dog. But here we are. We are practicing a pattern game. It's basically the 1, 2, 3 game, but I say ready, set, get it. Okay. And we're using the environment where I'm putting treats on on objects like the bench. Right. And so I'm engaging in the dog with the environment, like, oh, treats are going to appear here on this brick. Treats are going to appear on this bench here. Okay. And we're working on pattern games like a 1, 2, 3 game. Okay. And then we're also looking for little safety bubbles where if I need to get out of the way of something that might cause them some stress, okay, we're going to look for these little corners where we can kind of hide out in, right? And I practice this when the dog is feeling when he's feeling relaxed and he's calm, he's responsive to me, and we're not just doing this when the dog is stressed. Okay? So looking over here, we're going over here in this little corner, so just in case we have to use this in real life. Now I'm gonna, I think I'm about to do the up down game where I put the treat on the ground, he looks up, put another treat on the ground, he looks up. Okay. So if you're more interested in some of these pattern games, really check out Leslie McDevitt's work and her book, Control Unleashed. She has several versions of it, but at least read the latest version of it. There's some really great stuff in there. Okay. So that's Leslie McDevitt's pattern games, right? So it's so simple to use. So yes, I'm doing more of this, like going around in different places. Okay, so you make it fun, you make it engaging. You're going to use your body and movement to engage your dog. And we're right here, right by a bus stop, just hiding over here. There we go. And then you're going to see an example of this is creating a safety bubble for the dog, and some people walk by or jog by there. Okay. Okay. So we're wrapping up here. So the lovely thing about this, I'm hoping that you found this to be true, is that this is relatively easy to teach to even new handlers. So I teach these pattern games to some of our volunteers at the shelter. I'm not asking them to do like some sort of like complicated behavior training plan. I'm telling them, can you count out loud 1, 2, 3 and give a dog a treat? Okay, do that again and repeat that. Okay, do that. All right. You can if maybe you have to teach a dog how to lie down first, so you can teach a dog how to lie down. So and then I showed a volunteer, so the dog knows how to lie down, doing this little cue. You take a treat, you lure the dog to the ground, and then you just kind of give a steady stream of treats, on the floor. Okay, just doing a relaxation behavior. Right. So some of these games are so easy. Can you put a treat on a rock? Can you put a treat on a brick and just repeat that over and over? And do that when the dog gets a little too excited so that you help them calm down and focus on you a little bit. And what we're looking for, okay, what we're looking for is less frequent and intense reactions. Okay. We are looking for a faster recovery time from stress. And I think the power of all these games, these decompression activities, exercises, is the simplicity of it. Okay, it's simple. It doesn't require years and years of training. Okay, you may need to know how to understand canine body language. Okay, that might be the more important skill to learn. But as far as like the mechanics of like what you need to teach people to do, or what if you're doing this for your own dog, hopefully this isn't too hard for you to do. Okay, hopefully you can actually implement this right away. So quick summary. And some takeaways for you all, 5 takeaways. Create a sense of safety and security. Okay, that coyote example. So if you have an anxious dog, a fearful dog, avoid those triggers as best you can. I know you can't control the environment, okay? And sometimes you're in an environment where it's unavoidable, but do the best you can to avoid those triggers in time and space. And you build resilience by creating that sense of safety and security, and working on decompression activities where when they get stressed, you bring them back down. Okay, so just working on that relaxation center. So any type of like work on relaxation, activation, and relaxation, and go through that cycle over and over with those dogs, so their skill, their pathway to relaxation becomes stronger, and they get better at it, and you get better at it too. Pattern games create predictability, so it makes life in a chaotic and unpredictable environment makes it more predictable. You can add a little bit of predictability when you can't control everything. And all this is, and I'm borrowing a term from Suzanne Clothier, is to bring the dog into the thinking and learning zone so that you can actually start to teach them something new, or teach them what you want to teach them. Because when they're too stressed, they're not going to learn in that moment, or at least they're not going to learn very efficiently. So if you've been having a hard time working with your dog, or you feel like you plateaued with your dog, and you haven't really, or you haven't understood or haven't known how to work on decompression, this is probably the next tool you need. All right. So thank you all. Thank you all for spending some time with me out your busy schedules. This is just sharing, some of the places where I work, and that's where you can find me as well. You can email me at Ferdie@sitsandwiggles.com. So I'm ready to take on some questions. Sorry, went over time a little bit, but hopefully you guys enjoyed the presentation.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ferdy. That was a ton of great information. And also, what cute dogs. Always great.
I
Um,
love the
a
shelf dogs.
couple of the questions that we've gotten. One of them, are there any exceptions to leash laws for long leashes? Many counties say they have to be on a 6 foot or 8 foot leash, but is there an exception if you're in a park or somewhere with more space? Like, what do you do about that?
Okay, so I'm gonna say this. Okay, I'm not encouraging you all to break laws, right? But I think if you know your community well enough, and you know what they're going to enforce and what they're not going to enforce. Okay, so there are 6 foot leash laws everywhere around here where I live, and I can tell you, no police officers going around giving people tickets for their dog being on a retractable leash or a long line. I've never ever seen it. And quite frankly, the cops around here have better things to do than hand out tickets to people. Like if you have your dog off leash in a place where your dog is not supposed to be off leash, okay, yes, like I've seen people, they get tickets there. Okay, but without encourage, I'm not saying go break a law. I'm just saying you may have to understand, the culture of your environment, your community, and what's allowed and what's kind of like, yeah, we'll turn a blind eye on that. We'll kind of look away. But please be responsible, okay? Like, it just if you see other dogs on leash and your dog is off leash, don't let your dog off leash unless you have a pretty good like recall and you get your dog to come back to you. Until then, use a long line. So be respectful of other people and their pets.
Awesome. And if you do get in trouble, just say Ferdy told you to. Just kidding. Please don't do.
Yeah.
Another question. I've been trying the 1, 2, 3 pattern game with shelter pups, but they seem to lose interest. Should I switch it to something easier like an up down or another pattern? We don't really have access to an indoor quiet area to start.
Ah, gotcha. Yeah, you know what? Sometimes like doing it up down, yeah, that would be easier because it's a little simpler. There's less time. It's a little faster. And then what you can do is like once you start to see the dog is more engaging with you, is engaging with you more, then you can maybe switch to a 1, 2, 3 game if you want to get a little more duration. I know, like, I don't know if you tried this, you probably have. It sounds like you know a thing or two about training already. Like a higher value treat, but yeah, it can be, I know it can be tough. Sometimes it may help, like if you put some towels down on the ground, like a visual marker. So you do a combination of like a 1, 2, 3 game with Super Bowls. So you're doing 1, 2, 3. You put the treat on the towel or on the bowl, and that's where you start, and then hopefully you can build that up so that you can kind of graduate to a 1, 2, 3 game without the prompts.
Awesome. And it's a good reminder too that some of these dogs, especially in the shelter environment, like their stress levels may be high enough that they can't play any of these games depending on what's going on. So
Yeah.
always a good
Yep.
reminder that there's only so much within our control too.
Yeah, and yeah, and to that point, like sometimes, like I don't know if you have access to it, but if you do, and you have a dog that's really, really suffering and having a hard time, you might want to consult with a veterinary behaviorist or a vet that specializes in behavior and look into behavior meds because sometimes they really need that in the shelter setting. Some dogs really, really just struggle in that type of environment.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, Ferdy, this has been such a joy. Thank you for all of this great information and for being here. Folks, I will get this recording up hopefully tomorrow, and we look forward to hearing more from you in the future. So
Okay,
have a
thank you.
good
It's been
night,
a pleasure.
everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.